Hi, guys. This is a little strange. As you can see me. I am not just on audio. So I'm going to start posting my podcast on YouTube as well as on your podcast platforms. So today, my guest is Traci Neal. Traci is a obviously amazing woman. She is a poet. She is an author, and so many other things. So I cannot wait to get into our conversation today. So Traci, why don't you tell our audience about yourself?
Okay, so a little bit about me is I came from humble beginnings. 4 years ago, I used to be a pre-K aide, which is a teacher assistant.
Mhm.
So I tell people I came to the poetry platform from the ground up. No experience as far as being in the media or anything, but I was raised to be very mannerly, to be respectful, and so I learned how to navigate that, you know, to be able to get more into the poetry space. Um,
Mhm.
I reached out to people that I was interested in being a part of, collaborating with, and just try to have a pleasant attitude. And the people that gave me a chance, it just kind of flourished from
Mhm.
one opportunity to another. But I'll say when things started shifting for me was when I got in the New York Times. I had tried to get in the New York Times 3 times. I
Mhm.
guess the third time is a charm, but there was a shift that took place with the New York Times, and that's when the dynamic of what I wanted to do with the poetry changed. So when I tried to get in the New York Times the third time, it was mainly about being vulnerable and using that vulnerability to be an inspiration for others to shine. So that was a different shift than what I originally was thinking about with doing the poetry. I wanted to be star. I wanted to be famous. I wanted it
Uh-huh.
about me, if
Uh-huh.
I could be honest. But
Yeah.
there was a deeper plan, a deeper purpose for the poetry. So I learned that, I should be a servant. So
Mhm.
I utilized that getting in the New York Times to shift the focus away from myself and how I could help someone else like I was helped.
Okay.
So it
Yeah.
really changed. And with my mindset changing towards that, opportunities came quicker,
Okay.
if that
Mhm.
makes sense. Um, I tell people help people who help people.
Mhm.
So when
That's
you're
great.
focused, yes, when you're focused on trying to figure out how to help someone else, there will be people to be able to help you to further that mission along.
Mhm.
So I'm very grateful for that. And yeah, the rest is history.
Wow. That is amazing. So, 4 years ago, like you said, you were a teacher's aide. And then now, had you written poetry before then? Had that been something that you sort of used as an outlet when you were, younger or as a young adult? Um, tell us about that.
Yes. I actually started writing when I was 5. Um, and I have to tie in my autism with this
Mhm.
because at the time I didn't know it was divinely given. So it's like hearing a voice, but you don't know where the voice is coming from or
Mhm.
who it is. That's how it was. And so when I was writing and as I got older, I started getting more involved in poetry. So I started at 13,
Okay.
really digging into poetry. And at 14, I started performing it. But the interesting thing about it was I was talking about things that was beyond my age and beyond my experiences.
Mhm.
So subconsciously I thought this was me. But with my diagnosis, I discovered that my mindset is very basic with my autism, like a child. So the
Mhm.
poetry being divinely given is coming from a pure place. I like to tell people, like, think of a child that believes in Santa Claus. It's pure. It's
Yeah.
very pure. So it's actually gotten better. The poetry has gotten way better because I acknowledge that it's not for me.
Yep.
And then like when people see that I'm like bubbly and giddy, I also got diagnosed with ADHD. So I tell people I am like this adult kid.
Mhm.
I am like super high energy. The simple things are just warm and fuzzy. If you can recall, there was a movie that Drew Barrymore played in called Toyland. That's what goes on
Hmm.
in my head.
I'm gonna have to watch that. I do not know that movie.
Yes, it's been remade, but that's a good version of what goes on in my head.
Ooh, I can't wait.
That happy world.
Wow. And that is, listeners, that's one of the real reasons why I wanted to bring Traci on, is just because she is just a beautiful spirit, a beautiful personality, and she is not what you would typically think of as someone with, the stereotype as someone with autism. So, and Traci was diagnosed at 34, I believe.
Yes, and
And
I'm
so
35 now.
and she's 30, so just about a year of her knowing that that autism is part of her story. And so it's just so cool. I mean, she is a black woman, she's black, she's a woman, she has autism, she has ADHD, and she is wanting to talk about it and bring awareness to it to help others. So she is perfect for our show. And so just super honored to have her on. And so, Traci, would you tell us a little bit about, your younger childhood and, maybe knowing or feeling like something was different and not really knowing what that was, and how that affected you, how that was for you?
Yes. So as a child, it didn't really hit me as much because I embraced my happy world. So
Mm,
my toys were my friends.
mm,
So sending me to my room, my parents had to come up with creative strategies when it came to like punishing me besides the regular discipline. Sending to my room was not a punishment because I could shut my door and go
mm.
into my happy world with my toys, and it was like this amazing world,
Wow.
there. And so things shifted when I got into middle school. Middle school was when I started getting bullied for the way I look.
Okay.
Um, it's just very interesting. I tell people because I felt so ugly growing up
Mm,
because of how I was treated by girls, especially Black girls. And so I had this stigma that, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not this, I'm not that type thing.
mm.
And I had to revert to a happy world when I came home one day in sixth grade and my mom got rid of all of my toys. And she didn't know that, they told me that I was different. They knew that I was different, but I didn't have that name to my difference. So when I got home and I saw my toys going, you would have thought I lost my best friends.
Mm.
Like it was so sad for me. And so I had to recreate those images, that world in my mind. And so
Okay.
I learned how to do that. And when I dealt with the tough times, I could go to that place. But poetry really became that outlet because it was like I could go into that happier world,
Mm,
if that makes sense.
mhm.
So with the poetry, I was able to just, have that outlet, that space to just be myself. And it was enough. So I'm really grateful for the poetry. And the interesting thing with the poetry was I always like received a poem before something tragic happened in my life.
Wow.
And so I guess a recent one was in like March, uh I forgot the specific date, but March of this year. Um 2 months later, my one of my relatives, my uncle, passed away in May. So
Okay.
2 months prior, God gave me a poem to embrace that moment that I shared with him, that positive moment. And so when I look back on the times of things that I went through that were such a struggle, such a hard time, that could have been a truly devastating time, I had that outlet to go back to. And
Wow.
I'm so grateful for that. Like, poetry is my heart because it followed me throughout the different stages and traumas of my life. And I do want to talk about that because oftentimes with people that Black women, especially that are autistic, we go through traumas. So mine, it started at 13 with the bullying and things of that nature. It got so bad for me that I tried to attempt suicide. So I tried to attempt suicide at 13. And that's why I said poetry was that outlet, to express myself, with those struggles and to move past that. I also did therapy for my low self-esteem because I was going through like really bad low self-esteem. And I won't say it wasn't helpful at all, the therapy, but I feel like I needed therapy for, my autism. Because I didn't know what I knew I was thinking differently, but I didn't know why I was thinking differently. And so being told that you think differently, you're different. Okay, why?
Why?
And there's still this stigma in the Black community that, let's not talk about it.
For sure.
Let's not talk about it.
And
And especially with Black women, let's not talk about it. And mine, because it was unique, like I said, I think like a kid, pretty much, being around, no offense, being around, smarter Black females, it was challenging. And so when I would express that giddiness and that, random awkwardness and just how I thought, they're like, what's wrong with you? Why are you acting like that? But and I've heard other women say that they felt more comfortable around men. That was definitely me. I could I'm a daddy's girl already, and my dad would be very patient with me. He'd work with me when I was in school and there were topics that I didn't understand. He was very helpful and detail oriented. He would say, how much do you want me to break it down? I said, break it down as far as you can break it down.
as far as you can break it down.
Break it down.
All the way down.
All the way down.
All the way down. All the way down.
And he didn't mind because he's a retired high school teacher, so he could do that. And I love that about my father. It was that consistency, the willingness to just help me through it. And so I kind of flocked to the guys because I had that relationship with my father to just feel like I could be myself.
And do you think it was because like men tend to be more concrete? There's less of that nuance, there's less of that, unspoken words that you should pick up on with body language or eye contact. Do you think that's why you kind of gravitated towards men, because there's less of that to be navigated?
Yes, and I feel like guys were competitive, but they weren't competitive the same way females are.
Okay.
If that makes any sense. Like females that I knew growing up, they were competitive with the hair, how their bodies were shaped, things of that nature. And that was not my interest. I wasn't interested in those things. And so with guys, because of my simple mind, I would tend to listen. And they love that. They love that I would be willing to listen. And so I guess in a way it was an advantage for me because I've heard some women saying it was so difficult to, date. It wasn't for me. It was not difficult for me to date for me because I didn't require much for me to be pleased. So I was considered the low maintenance. And because it wasn't hard to please me, they would extend themselves.
That
So
is so interesting.
I would have guy friends call me and say, Tracy, you want to go to the movies? You want to go out to eat? You think I had to pay?
Nope.
It was awesome.
Wow. And so Traci, so this is, even for me, this is just such an illustration of how if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism, and how autism is a spectrum. There are certain criteria that you have to meet, but then every person is so individual. And so for me, what you're saying, that you were not awkward at all, or I guess that's how you would phrase it, around males. Females, you had lots of trouble with them. And where females were so insecure about their bodies and their clothing and their hair, and it made it difficult for them to interact with males, you didn't have that trouble, because we think that, oh, someone with autism isn't going to be very good at dating, isn't going to be very good at communicating with the opposite sex. And you're saying that you were completely and totally different. So how did the fact that you were more able to interact with males, how did that affect the navigating the female relationships as they watched you be able to do that?
Um, and let me be clear, I had another trauma. Like when I was 16, I was in a domestic violent relationship, and then 20, I was raped. But because I had experienced so many wonderful times with men, I knew that wasn't all men.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm not quick to be
Yeah,
like,
that's great.
yeah, to say that, oh, all men are this way. I don't feel that way because I experienced the
Mm,
opposite from a lot of guys.
yeah, from
So
an
I
early
do.
age.
Mhm.
Mm,
So that was a blessing in disguise, that
yeah.
even though I had those, you know, traumatic experiences, I had so many positive experiences with
Mm-hmm.
guys. Because for one thing, when I was in college, I didn't have a car.
Mm-hmm.
So these guys were picking me up,
Wow.
taking me to these places and bringing me back home.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that I appreciated about them was they were protective of me.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's really, so again, like, this conversation is so great, because a lot of people with autism, and especially women, they don't have such great relationships with men, and they are often preyed upon by men, and that has happened to you, and I'm so sorry. However, you have a different story to tell, for the most part, that you felt protected and taken care of by men, by boys. And so, that's another thing to bring out, that's so important. um yeah, that's amazing.
Yes.
So yeah, so talk about how, like, those female relationships. You said that you attempted suicide at 13 because of bullying. Talk about how that affected you then, and how obviously you've had some healing work. How that has affected how you are now, and affected your mission.
Yes. So then I did, like I said, because I thought differently, I was giddy, bubbly and things, and kind of like socially awkward
Mhm.
around females, and they could kind of sense that I was like an easy target for them to bully. So when I liked guys, they would make fun of it. I would get made fun of in front of the guys that I liked. One female spread a sexual rumor about me, about this guy that I liked. I didn't even know about this term that was used. So you can tell I had not experienced anything. I didn't even know what the term meant until a friend told me.
Wow.
So it was embarrassing. So it like kind of put me into a very like dark place. And I remember when I was sharing with my mother about being bullied, and I know she meant well. She was just like, this is a phase, but that's another thing that kind of comes in the Black community, that we're supposed to put your big girl panties on,
For
tough it
sure.
out, tough it out,
For sure.
deal with this. But it was so devastating for me. It was so traumatizing for me. And now I can look back on that experience and know why.
Yeah.
Because I tell people, you might think the way you think, but with my mindset, it goes up 10 times.
Mm-hmm.
It goes higher
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
than yours.
Mm-hmm.
So what might affect you in a small way will affect me in a huge way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I want to like continue to speak out about it, how we think. We don't think the same, but we are human. We are
Yep.
human just like you guys, but we just
Mm-hmm.
don't think the same. And you have to
Mm-hmm.
listen to us to better understand us. And
Absolutely.
I just felt like with females, and I have to say the Black females,
Mm-hmm.
I am
That's
a
your
Black woman.
experience.
It's my experience, and sometimes I still get that,
Yeah.
with the Black females, because I am willing to be open about my conditions. I am not ashamed of it. Some people don't like that I embrace it.
Yes, girl.
but I'm like, you know what? I am a voice to those that have no voice, because
Amen.
there is a Black girl out there like me that is giddy and
Amen.
not as super smart, and she needs to see that there's somebody out there like her, and that
Mm-hmm.
she can do great things too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Mm-hmm.
the things that I went through, I see now, because I used to say, oh, why do I have to keep suffering? But
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I suffered in order to be that advocate, that voice
Girl.
for someone else.
Girl. And that's why we're here.
Yes.
You and I, we're like, but it takes people like us who are the loudmouths, who are willing to draw the attention, and with that comes, the criticism. With that comes, people not understanding or misconstruing why we're doing this, misconstruing why you are talking about embracing your autism, misconstruing why I talk about being married to a man on the spectrum and the mom to a child on the spectrum. But I want people who look like me, everybody, but people who look like me, who had the same cultural experience as me, who are very in our community. This is not a well-known topic. It is not something that is embraced or talked about. Because of that, kids are getting diagnosed way later than they should. They're not getting the therapies that they need. It's making their, potential to not only survive but thrive in life. It affects that. So if you and I, like you said, there's a little Black girl out there that she is feeling the way you felt. She is going through the things that you go through. And if she doesn't ever see anyone that looks like her and that is talking about the experience that she is having, then she may never speak out or seek help. And so, it's just amazing that the work you're doing, your poetry, putting yourself out there on these national and international stages. Yeah, like keep it up. Like I can't even, like I am like obviously super excited, but so talk about, your poetry now and what that's evolved into, what you're using it for, and kind of how you plan to go forward.
Yes, the poetry now is on a whole nother level, but
Mm-hmm.
definitely really talking about the neurodivergent experience
Mm-hmm.
as a Black woman,
Mm-hmm.
which I have been so, happy about. Recently I got one of my poems in the Black Art magazine. It's a
Mm-hmm.
nonprofit magazine. I had not even heard of it.
Wow.
I'm just one of those people that research, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
let me see, who I would like to work with next.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I saw it, combining art and poetry, like that, I was just like, okay, I have to, submit some poems
Yeah.
and see what works. And they picked the one about the message of a neurodivergent, colorful woman. And I'm like,
Awesome.
yes, yes,
Yes.
y'all are gonna.
Because yeah. And y'all, her poetry is amazing. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, it is like brilliant. She says she's not smart. I don't understand, but I
No,
don't get it.
I tell you, it's so
It's
funny because,
brilliant.
and I love talking about it because, I just, like I said, I have to give credit where credit's due. It's divinely
Yep.
given, y'all, because
I know it's
there's
God. I know it is. I know it is.
there's some words that I'm like, I hear. So it's like a telephone. Like you talk on the
Mhm.
telephone, and I get this ringing in my brain, and I pick up the phone and I just listen. That's
Hello.
how it is. And I tell y'all,
Then you get the download.
yes, I get the download. The words, there are words that I hear, and I'm like, well, I don't know how to spell that. So I have to Google it, and then I found out the meaning. But then a few minutes later, I don't even remember the meaning no more. So, so
But
people
you
will
wrote it
talk.
down.
Yes. Sometimes I write it down, sometimes I don't. I can't even lie. And I'm just like, oh, that sounded really good. I would have never thought of that. But that's so
I'm
good.
like, good thing God gives it to me because I never would have thought of that one. Oh my goodness. That is that, but that's amazing. So that's the next thing. So tell us, I'm a woman of faith too. I'm a Christian and you are as well, but tell us how your faith got you through, how it plays a part, what the theme of it throughout your life.
It started when I was young. So I grew up where my parents, took me to church. I went through vacation Bible school. Mind you, I was a whiner when I was a child.
Mhm.
And my mama did not like whining. So she had
No.
to take me out in church. And y'all know the rest.
Yep. Oh, I know.
she,
I know. You
if I
were
have to
fine
get
when
it
you
up,
got back though.
yeah, yes, I was. But the
You got
funny
it
thing
all the
is,
way together.
yes, we laugh about this though because at the church I was going to, they did hymnals where it was like the call and response and the congregation sang
Mhm,
and stuff.
mhm,
And I remember those hymnals because it was
mhm.
repetitive. The
Yep.
repetition I remember. So I tell people I
Mhm,
remember so much from my childhood because the
mhm,
teacher, I had amazing Black teachers that
mhm,
taught repetition and
mhm.
consistency, the drill and practice.
Yep.
But once I got to middle school on up, I didn't experience that. So I'm
Mhm.
like, I don't
So
remember.
then it was like, this is not how I learned. I and I'm so fine. I'm just not gonna, I'm not gonna bother.
And I
Mhm.
tell people because I have 2 degrees. I have a
Mhm.
master's and a bachelor's, but I
Yep.
don't remember any of it. And I was actually explaining to my cousin one time. She said, "Well, how did you like pass? Like, how did you get through?" And I said, "God gave me this stuff. He
Yep.
gave me what I needed to know at the time, and then
Mhm.
that's it."
And And you know, that is so amazing that you was because it tells us that we need to have like the faith like of a child, like a childlike disposition when we go to God. And I think, most of us as we get older, adults, we lose that. We don't have that anymore. So it's like harder. It's more of a struggle sometimes to hear from God until you learn, if you ever do that, approaching Him